Hi, this is Dr. Paul Riley, and here is the screencast on how to record your first screencast with ScreenR. In this case, one of the several in-browser recorders that we used during this particular project. With ScreenR, there are certain requirements in terms of the system that you use, but as you will see in this slide, you can use Mac or Windows. Usually what ScreenR will do is try and detect whether you have the most up-to-date version of Java or a Flash player, and it will prompt you to download this before you can record. In terms of synchronicity with social media sites, you can use Facebook, Twitter, Google or Yahoo to log into ScreenR. We used Twitter in this particular case. However, you could use any of the others. An important point to bear in mind is that in the terms and conditions of ScreenR and other sites such as Screenomatic, it does state that they will not use your content in ways which you're not aware of. One thing we did think which was important to stress was that if you do create a series of screencasts, you may want to look at how you customize your page and to pick a username and a picture through which your students will be able to easily identify you as the person creating them. Here's an example. This is my ScreenR page. You'll see in the top right hand corner that I've used the same username as my Twitter account and the same picture. That was a deliberate decision so that students in my class who were using Twitter to interact with me in relation to each week's readings could then see it was me who was creating this content. What you'll also notice on the right hand side is that one of my students in this particular year actually posted comments and asked questions after viewing this content. Again, something which you might want to consider in terms of showing or measuring the impact of this activity. You can also look at the number of views for each video as you post them as well, which could be very useful in terms of showing how many times students access content or when they're accessing this content as well. So some hints and tips on how to prepare your lecture summary. Firstly, trying to think about the number of slides that you use. I find that between 5 and 7 is usually sufficient. Clearly, with a site like ScreenR, which only allows up to 5 minutes recording time, you may want to think about 5 slides as an adequate number. Clearly any more than that and you may have to speak very quickly. And clearly the pace with which you speak is something you want to pay some attention to here. And this is obviously something that may determine the number of slides that you end up using. We also found in the project that perhaps a way to increase the reusability of this content was not to put the dates of a lecture on it. For example, in my activism and protest module, I would just put my name in the module title so that in future years, if the content remained the same for that particular class, I could reuse that content seamlessly. In terms of pictures, the advice that we would give would be to use Creative Commons licensed pictures if available and where possible, just to avoid any copyright infringements which may occur from the use of images you've not got permission to use. However, in general, these presentations used for screencasts tend to be more text than images, so it may not be an issue. And clearly, in terms of future recordings, it might be worth keeping a copy of the PowerPoint presentation you've used to speak over, just in case you need to record these in the future. In terms of the delivery, one thing to consider is how you'll introduce yourself. In this particular screencast, I would introduce myself as the speaker. You may want to think about how you do that for your students. Remembering your audience, well, clearly that is not just about identifying yourself, but also trying to speak as clearly as possible. This will also involve some consideration of the time you have. If it's ScreenR with 5 minutes or Screenomatic where you could have up to 15 minutes, that may well give you the flexibility you need to convey all the main points from that particular class or that particular topic. but just try and make sure you don't have to rush towards the end to miss out perhaps on some of the key points. However, crucially important, and this is something that we found in our 2012 study of how Blackboard could be used to support dissertation students, try not to be too much of a perfectionist with this. This should be conversational, not a formal lecture. There will inevitably be moments when you don't speak as clearly as you would have liked, but that is part of the dynamic with screencasts. You may want to listen to them, and perhaps once, just to see how you sound. But again, this may well be something which helps with, not only with your future screencast recordings, but also with your teaching practice. We have some examples of screencasts on the site which you may want to look at. These will give you an indication of some of the ways in which you might approach this. And again, this might help in terms of how you approach your first screencast recording. So on ScreenR, some of the sort of overview steps you might want to look at. Clearly, logging on to ScreenR, you would use your Twitter account. You'll see in the top right hand corner of this particular screenshot, you can sign in with Twitter and Facebook. You would then click on the record button, which you've highlighted in green here, which will take you through to a next screen which will scan your system and will look for whether you have Java installed or the appropriate Flash player. If at this point you don't have it, it will ask you to download it. Then you will resize the frame. The frame you'll see in the middle of the screen, that it will enable you to capture whatever content you want to convey. With a PowerPoint, usually that's a relatively straightforward process. And once you've resized that frame to a point where you've got all the content covered, you will then click on the red record button at the bottom left hand of the screen on the toolbar. You'll then speak over your slides and go through the presentation as you would during a class. And once you've finished, you'll click on Done, and then it will allow you to preview the screencast before you decide to publish it. Clearly at this point, if you were very unhappy with the content, you could then choose to delete and start again. Once it's been published, it will be available online and you'll be able to link to it in your lecture content and your module handbooks. Thank you.